Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today I am going to give you the lecture number 7 as a audio and video recording, which is about the design rules. The lecture slides of this lecture have been already posted on the website, so this is the additional video recording for the lecture. So let's start the lecture. Design rules. When we are designing any object, any product, or even a software, our objective is that we are designing for the maximum usability. The meaning is that we are designing such that it is the effective product, it is efficient, it is easy to use, and the user can learn how to use the system easily. So this is the goal of the interaction design. So whatever the design is for any product, we have to keep this thing in the mind. So in this lecture we are going to discuss that how we can design with this goal, that is the maximum usability. So in order to design the maximum usability, we have to follow some rules, we have to follow some guideline, we have to follow some standard. So we are going to discuss these things in this lecture. So we are going to discuss first the principle of the usability. The meaning is that what principle we should follow so that we can design for the maximum usability. This should be the general understanding for the designer, that we are designing with the principle of the usability. After that we are going to discuss the standard and the guideline. The meaning is that what are the standards are there, what is the meaning of the standard, and what are the guidelines are there which are giving us some kind of direction in the design process. And finally we are going to discuss about the design pattern. The design pattern means that we are capturing and reusing the design knowledge. That is, sometime we are designing for some specific product, but later on we can again use the same design for the other product. So the meaning is that we are using the design again. So this is the reuse. So in the design pattern, if we are designing with some standard, with some guidelines, we are actually creating a design pattern, and that can be used. So we are going to discuss about the design pattern. The main thing we are going to discuss in this lecture will be about the principle of the usability. So this is going to encompass most of the lecture, and the other two things will be there but not in much detail. So first let's understand that what is the meaning of the authority and the generality. By authority we mean an indication of whether or not the rule must be followed in the design or whether it is only suggested. Sometimes it happens that we must have to obey the rule in the design process. So we are going to say that in that case authority is high if we must have to follow the design rule. But sometimes it is giving as a suggestion that if we are going to use this rule, then it is better. Then we are going to say that the authority is the low. So higher the authority, we must have to follow the rule in much stricter way, otherwise authority is going to be the less. So this is the meaning of the authority. Now let's talk about the generality. By generality we mean whether the rule can be applied to many design situations or whether it is focused on a more limited application situation. So as from the name it is clear that we are talking about something general. So if we are designing and we are using the rule which is a quite general, which can be applied to more than one situation, then we are going to say that generality is the high. But if it is not the case, we are designing and we are using some rule which is very specific to that product, then we are going to say that generality is the low. So these are the two concepts in the design: authority and the generality. We will see that how we can draw them as a graph. So again let's discuss about some terms, some terminology. The principles are the abstract design rule. So they are some kind of rule, but they are not being described in much detail. They are a little bit abstract is there. So these are the principles. So the principles have the low authority and the high generality. We already discussed what is the authority and what is the generality. So we are saying that the principle have the low authority because we are using some rules which are not being strictly implemented. So that why it is called the authority is the law. Authority is the law, because we are saying that these are the abstract design rule. So they are not, we are not giving very detailed instruction how what are these rules are there. So that's why the authority is the low in the principle, and generality is high in the principle. So usually it happens that when the authority is the low, generality is the high, because in the authority we are applying the rule in much a strict way. So when we are not applying, it means that this is more general. The second term is the standard. Standards are the specific design rule. So we are using the word here specific. In the previous principle we used the word abstract, so which is little bit vague. In case for the standard, they are the specific, so they are giving very detailed instruction what are the rules are there. So in that situation, authority is going to be the high, because they have to be applied as it is. We have to follow them strictly, and in that situation the generality is going to be low. But they have a limited application, because the rules are not very general. Their generality is the low, so that's why they can be applied to the specific design. So their application is the limited. And what are the guidelines are there? Guidelines have the low authority. So again, it meaning that we do not have to follow the rule in much a strict way, and more general applications are there in the guideline. So it means that when the authority is the low, generality is the higher. If we look in terms of the graph, along the horizontal axis we have the increasing authority, along the vertical axis we have the increasing generality. So as you can see, if we draw a line which is going to separate the guidelines and the standard, when we are moving towards the higher authority, we are moving along this side. So you can see that we are moving toward the standards, because the standard has the high authority. But when we are moving toward this side, that is on the vertical side, we are moving towards this side, so we are coming towards the guidelines which are increasing the generality, because we are not moving toward the very specific things, but we are making the things more general. So that's why the guidelines have the low authority and the high generality. So you can see here for the guidelines we have the low authority. So this is indicated here. Let me discard all of these things, and let me also see if the recording is proceeding. Okay, now after we are going to discuss about the principle to support the usability, and I say that this is going to be the important and the major part for this lecture. Sorry. Usability is generally regarded as ensuring that interactive products are easy to learn. I told you before that when we talk the word usability, we mean that we are designing something, we are designing the product which are easy to learn, so that if the user is learning the system, it should not find it difficult to learn, and the product should be easy, effective to use, and enjoyable from the user perspective. So these are general definition for the usability. Now what are the principles that are supporting the usability? The meaning is that what principle we have to follow so that they are going to help us to achieve the usability. So basically the three principles to support the usability are following: learnability, flexibility, and the robustness. Now we are going to discuss the detail of these principles. What is learnability, what is the flexibility, and what is the robustness. And within each of these ones, there may be the multiple other things will be there. So again, in the learnability, many other things we have to study. Similarly for the flexibility, and similarly for the robustness. So more branches will be there. So first see the definition for these things. What is learnability, what is flexibility, and what is the robustness. Learnability, the ease with which the new user can begin effective interaction and achieve the maximal performance. So the meaning is that when we talk about the learnability, that the new user can use the system, can use the product easily in an effective and the efficient way. So main point is here, the new users are there, and which are begin the effective interaction, means that they are using the product, they are using the system efficiently. So we say that learnability is there. What is the meaning by the flexibility? The multiplicity of ways the user and the system exchange the information. We are talking about the interactive products in which both the systems and the users, they are interacting with each other. Sometimes the user is providing the input to the system, and the system is providing the output to the user. So the interactive communication is there. In case for the flexibility, there is not only one strict way that the user and the system are doing the interaction, but the multiple ways are there. They can exchange or they can pass the information. So we are going to say this is the flexibility. The third principle for the usability is that robustness. The level of the support provided the user is determining successful achievement and the assessment of the goal directed behavior. So the system is providing some kind of support in a way that the user can achieve the goal successfully. So whatever the user intention is there, whatever they want to achieve, either they are using the word processor or they are using the GPS, so the system is providing a good support to the user so the user can achieve the goal. For example, in the GPS, the objective is that the user can reach to the destination easily, and the GPS system is providing the right kind of guidelines and right kind of instruction. So we are going to say this is the robust system. Now we are going to discuss the much more detail about these principles of to support the usability. We will discuss much detail about the learnability, many details about the learnability, flexibility and the robustness. So first discuss the principles of the learnability. So here we are not discussing the usability directly. First we come to the learnability. Now within the learnability we are discussing the more principle for the learnability. So these principles are the for the learnability. We are discussing the predictability, how we can achieve the learnability, synthesizability, familiarity, generalizability and the consistency. So we will discuss each of them one by one. The first one is the predictability. What is the predictability? Determining the effect of the future action based on the past interaction history. So whatever we are doing in the past, whatever we are doing at current moment, it is going to give us some kind of clue, some kind of information that what we are going to achieve, what will happen in the future. So that's why we say that this is something like this. I think this action will achieve this thing. So we have some kind of prediction is there. If I am doing this thing, I can predict that what is going to happen. So this is called the predictability. In the predictability, a kind of predictability is the operation visibility. What is the operation visibility? Graphical drawing program. If we are using some graphical drawing program, for example the MS Paint, then whatever we draw on the canvas or on the frame, we can see on the frame. So it is that whatever we are doing, we can see that on the screen as a output. So we can say that our operation is the visible. It is not the case we are doing something but we cannot see this thing. So this is the operation visibility, which is a kind of predictability. The second principle for the learnability is the synthesizability. What is the synthesizability? Assessing the effect of past action on the current state. So whatever we have done, by doing this action, we know that what is the state of the system, where the system is there. Maybe system is in the initial state or maybe the system in the middle state, because usually we are moving from state to the state. For example, let's see, understand this thing by the example. Moving a file from one folder to another folder in the graphical user interface versus the command based system. If we are transferring the file from one folder to the other folder in the GUI, graphical user interface, in the Windows, for example in the Windows 10, you will see that they are showing some kind of percentage or some kind of bar which is giving us that how much part of the file has been transferred. So we can say that this has the high synthesizability. We can say that, for example, 35% complete, 45% complete. But in the opposite way, if we are doing this thing by the command line, we use some command in the DOS command or in the command prompt, we are writing some command like a copy or x copy, then we do not know actually that how much file has been transferred, what percentage of the file is being transferred there. So in that case the synthesizability is the lower. So it means that if we are going to increase the synthesizability, it is going to increase the learnability. Similarly, if the system has the high predictability, it is achieving the learnability. Let's continue. The third principle for the learnability is the familiarity. What is the familiarity? How the prior knowledge apply to the new system. Meaning is that if we already have some knowledge, based on this knowledge we can use the new system. For example, typewriter metaphor for the word processing. If some person is already familiar with the device which is called a typewriter, he know how to use the typewriter, which was not a computer. And because the layout of the key in the typewriter and the computer keyboard are the same, so he can use the computer keyboard easily. So we are going to say that he was familiar with the typewriter, so he can use the word processing easily. So increasing the familiarity, we can achieve the learnability. The fourth principle of the learnability is the generalizability. What is the generalizability? Extending the specific interaction knowledge to the new situation. If we have some knowledge about the specific thing, can we extend this thing to the new situation? Not. If we can do this thing, then we are going to say that generalizability is the higher, which is going to achieve the learnability, and it is desirable that we have some knowledge is there already, and we can use the knowledge again for the new situation. For example, in a graphical drawing package that draws a circle as a constraint from the ellipse. So if we have some drawing program in which we can draw the ellipse, and because a circle is a kind of ellipse, so we can draw the circle as a form of the ellipse, because in case for the ellipse, the width and the height can be the different. This is the width of the ellipse, and this is the height of the ellipse. But in case for the circle, the width and height are the same. Of course, my drawing is not a perfect. So we can say that we can draw the circle as a part of the ellipse or as a form of the ellipse. Because the system can draw the ellipse, we can draw the circle. For example, in the Java, we have used a statement which is called the draw ellipse, in which we are passing the 4 parameter x and y, the top left corner of the constraint rectangle, which is going to contain the ellipse, and then the ellipse width and the ellipse height. By using these 4 parameters, we can draw the ellipse: x, y, width of the ellipse, and the height of the ellipse. If you want to draw the circle, what we are going to do, we are going to keep the value for the width and height are the same. We do not need the extra statement or some other command to draw the ellipse. So we are going to say that drawing the ellipse is more generalized. By using the statement for drawing the ellipse, we can also draw the circle. So the user can extend this knowledge. The user can say that he can draw the square using the statement or using the knowledge of the rectangle, because like the ellipse, in the rectangle the width and height can be the different, but in case for the square, the width and height are the same. So if we know how to draw the rectangle, we can use the knowledge to draw the square. So this is called the generalizability. The fifth principle for the learnability is the consistency. What is the consistency? Likeness in the input-output behavior arising from the similar situation or the task objective. So we are going to achieve the things which are being consistent across the application or within the application. Something is going to be more consistent. For example, if we are using the word processor and we are writing a document, then it is desirable that we are using the font sizes which are consistent. It should not happen that in one part of the document a paragraph is written with the different font size, in the other paragraph it is going to be written in the different sizes. So this is a desirability that we increase the consistency of the system, so increase the learnability. If the user finds the system is the consistent, he will find it easier to use this thing. So the font sizes, button labeling and the similar need to be consistent across the product to keep the visual consistency. As I give you the example for the word processor, if you are creating a documents or if you are creating a web page, you have to keep the things similar or consistent. For example, like a button, so try to use the similar kind of button and try to use the similar sizes for the fonts and the similar family for the font. It is going to increase the consistency, and by increasing the consistency we are going to achieve the learnability. So these are the principles for the learnability. As go back and understand that how we are doing, we have discussed the principle to support the usability. Within the principle to support the usability, the first principle was the learnability. Now within the learnability we have discussed the 5 principles. Now we are going to discuss about the flexibility, which is another principle to support the usability. Now within the flexibility there are going to be more principles. So we have discussed the principle of the learnability. Now we are going to discuss the principle of the flexibility, which is supporting the usability. So what are the principles for the flexibility? Dialog initiative, multi-threading, task migration, substitutivity and the customizability. So we will discuss each of them one by one. The first one is the dialog initiative. Freedom from the system impose constraint on the input dialog versus system versus the user preemptiveness to initiate the dialogue. It happens sometime in the system that the dialogues are coming from the system. So we are going to say that the dialog box or the window is being initiated by the system. Or in the other case, the user can also initiate the dialog. User can open some window. For example, user is pressing the Control P and the window for the print will come. Or the user is going to press the Control S, the saving window or the dialog box is coming. So it is desirable that we should have this option, that the both should be available, that the user and the system should able to initiate the dialog. So then we are going to say that the system has the more flexibility. On the one side, if just only one is able to initiate the dialog, then we are going to say that flexibility is the lower. The second principle for the flexibility is the multi-threading, ability of the system to support the user interaction for more than one task at a time. So the word multi-threading is indicating that we are doing or we are performing more than one task at a time. For example, in the multi-threading, now almost all the contemporary systems, operating system are using the multi-threading. We are running or we are executing more than one program at the same time, and on the back side, so many threads, so many processes are being running by the operating system. So this is an example for the multi-threading. Now in the multi-threading, there can be the two type of the multi-threading. One is the concurrent, other is the interleaving. What is the concurrent? Input to many tasks simultaneously. If the input is going to the many jobs or many tasks at the same time, then it is going to call the concurrent, because the many tasks are getting the input at the same time. The second one is the interleaving. Many tasks are running but the input to one at a time. So first we give the input to the task 1, then to the task 2, then to the task 3. Maybe we are running the 3 tasks, then again going back to the task 1, then task 2, task 3. So they are running the 3 tasks at the same time, but the input is going to give to each task one by one. But this interleaving is so much fast. Usually the user is not going to notice that either a task are running at the same time or they are running separately. The user is going to think that all the tasks are running at the same time, because interleaving is working very fast. So we are going to say that increasing the multi-threading is going to make the system more flexible, because the user can do more than one task at a same time. We do not want the user just stick to one task. The next principle for the flexibility is the task migration, passing the responsibility for the task execution between the user and the system. So it is desirable that our task can be done by the user or can be done by the system. We are increasing the flexibility. More options are there. For example, if you find that there is some spelling mistakes are there, you are writing some document, you are using some word processor. So now it should be the option, either you check the spelling and then you correct it, or other option is that you use the built-in dictionary in the word processor and it is going to correct the spelling mistake. Just you right click and then you choose one of the correct option to correct the spelling mistake. So both the options are there, the user can do and the system can do. So the task migration can be done either from the user to the system or from the system to the user. So we have a more flexibility. Now the fourth principle for the flexibility is the substitutivity, allowing the equivalent values of the input and the output to be substituted for each other. So if we allow this thing, we have the more substitutivity. It meaning that we should able to use more than one kind of things in the system. One example is that, for example, if we are drawing some object and we have to specify the measurement of the object, for example either the rectangle or the triangle, whatever, so we can specify the units either in the MKS system or maybe in the CGS system. We can specify the length or the width or the height either in the centimeter or in the inches. So we are going to say that it is desirable that we can do this thing. So we are going to say that system is allowing the substitutivity. We can give more than one type of the unit. We can use more than one type of the unit. The fifth principle for the flexibility is the customizability. What is the customizability? Modifiability of the user interface by the user, which is called the adaptability, or by the system adaptivity. So sometimes we want to modify the interface. Maybe we see that our some taskbar or some menu bar are there in the horizontal form. We want to change it in the vertical form. We want to see the some tools like this thing on this thing. So we can say that we can modify the user interface by the user. So this is the adaptability. And sometimes we want the system is doing this thing which is modifying the interface. For example, if we have opened the two windows and we want to arrange them side by side, either we want to arrange them like a horizontally side by side or the vertically side by side. So in the programs, maybe you have used this thing in the Microsoft product like the Word or the Excel. There is the arrangement of the windows are there. The system is going to arrange the windows for you, either they are being side by side vertically or the horizontally. So you can modify the interface, and you can say that you have a customizability of the interface. So we have a this is a desirable attribute, that customizability should be higher in order to increase the flexibility, and which is supporting the usability. So we have discussed the principle of the flexibility. Within the principle of the flexibility, we have discussed the 5 principles. Now the third one for the principle of the usability is the robustness. So now within the robustness, we are going to discuss the 4 principles: observability, recoverability, responsiveness, and the task conformance. Let's discuss them one by one. First is the observability. Ability of the user to evaluate the internal state of the system from the perceived representation. The meaning is that if the user is going to understand the internal state of the system, just it is looking whatever information is given to the user. By observing this information, user can understand that what is going internally by looking at externally. So we can say that this is the observability is there. For example, indicate ongoing status of the file download. When you are downloading some file and it is giving you the indication that 30% is complete, 40% is going to complete, so you can have, by this observability, you have the idea that the file is being downloaded there, how much has been completed, and what part of the file has been saved to your folder or to your destination. So by observing the status of the download, you have the idea that what is going on internally. You know that your hard disk is occupying some part of the file. For example, if the file size is the 10 MB and it is indicating that 50% have been complete, so you have the idea that internally 5 MB have been downloaded. The second principle for the robustness is the recoverability. What is the recoverability? Ability of the user to take the corrective action once an error has been recognized. If there is some error has been there, so the user can do the corrective action. It can do the correction so that we can go to the correct state. And this should be supported by the system. It is desirable feature. Now in the recoverability, there are the two kind of the recoverabilities there. One is called the forward error recovery, and the second is called the backward error recovery. What is the forward error recovery? Involve the acceptance of the current state and negotiation from that state toward the desired state. In the forward error recovery, what happens there? We are not going to stop in case for the error. We are going to negotiate the state, and then we are going to move to the next state, even though error has not been completely solved, but still we can move forward. So that's why we are saying that is a forward error recovery. We are doing some negotiation and then we are moving forward. We are not going to backward to correct all the mistakes. But in case for the backward error recovery, it is an attempt to undo the effect of previous interaction. So we have to move back, we have to undo the action, then we are going to move to the next state. So is attempt to undo the effect of the previous interaction in order to return to the prior state before proceeding. So in the backward error recovery, we have to undo the things which are causing the error, then we are going to move to the next state. Both are desirable depending on the situation that what we want to achieve. For example, in the word processor, if you have deleted some table or some figure, you can undo the action, which is by pressing the Control Z. So it is going to the backward error recovery. The next principle for the robustness is the responsiveness. What is the responsiveness? Response time is generally defined as the duration of the time needed by the system to expect the state changes to the user. So it is desirable that when the user is doing some action, the system is going to respond to the user action very quickly. So we are going to say that responsiveness is the high. But if the system is not responding, then we are going to say that responsiveness is the low, which is not desirable. For example, pull down menus are expected to pop up instantaneously as soon as mouse button is pressed. So if there is some menu is there, if you are pressing the pull down menus, you should see the other menu item very quickly. You should not wait for the long time. So we can say that responsiveness is the high in that case. Now what is the next principle for the robustness? Task conformance. What is the task conformance? Degree to which the system services support all of the user tasks. Maybe user is performing more than one task, two tasks or the three tasks. If the system is supporting all of these tasks so that the user can achieve the goal, so that we are going to say that the system is have the high task conformance. Otherwise the task conformance will be the low. So again we have it is desirable, we want to have the high task conformance, so the user is getting the support to complete all the tasks. We have discussed the principle of the usability. I say that within the principle of the usability we have discussed the learnability, we have discussed the flexibility, and we have discussed the robustness. So we have completed this part. Now we are going to talk about the standards. What is the standard? Set by the national or the international bodies to ensure the compliance by the large community of the design. Standard requires sound underlying theory and slowly changing technology. So there are usually some standard organizations are there. There are some organizations are there which are defining the standards, and all the people who are in the design, they are following these guidelines to design their products, or they are following their standard, or they are following their instruction to follow these guidelines. For example, ISO, International Standard Organization, they set the different standard for the different products, and they have a different version for the ISO. For example, ISO 9241 defines the usability as the effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction with which the user accomplishes the task. So this organization has defined the definition for the usability, and they say that for the usability we should have the system should have the effectiveness, efficiency, and the user satisfaction. So anyone who is designing some usable product and he want to achieve the high usability, it has to achieve the three things: the effectiveness, efficiency, and the satisfaction. So this standard has been set by the international standard organizations. The next thing is the guidelines. They are the more suggestive and general. If you talk about the standard, they are a bit strict, so their authority is the high, their generality is the low. But if you are talking about the guidelines, they are the more suggestive, so means the authority is a bit lower, and they are general. Understanding justification for guidelines aid in resolving the conflict. So if you are giving some guidelines, and if there is some conflict is coming in the design process, maybe one team member is saying one thing, one solution, other is saying the different thing, then if we come to the guidelines, usually we can resolve the problem and we can come to the same answer. Let's see the example for the guidelines. What is the guideline? Let's say the guideline is this one: distinctive cursor for the position. Designation on electronic display provide a movable cursor with a distinct visual feature, for example the shape, blink, extra. When you are using a cursor in the Windows operating system or in the other like the iOS operating system, you can see that the shape of the cursor is changing. For example, if you let me give you the example. If you have the window like this thing, if you bring the cursor here, you can see that this is showing like a two arrows are there horizontally. So meaning is that I can drag this window horizontally, I can change the size. So a cursor is changing the shape. When I am moving the cursor here, it is changing the shape to the arrow. When I am bringing the cursor here, it is showing the two arrows, but they are showing vertically. It means that I can resize this window vertically. So the cursor is changing the shape. So this change of the shape is a guideline that it is going to give the idea or the clue to the user that what is the meaning of this type of the cursor, and he can better idea about this how to use the system. But this is a guideline, not very authoritative thing. Now there are some Schneider's rules are there. They are called the Schneider 8 golden rules. These are being used by the designer when they are designing this thing. So what are these rules are there? And one more thing is that when you are reading the lecture slide, sometimes you will find that there are some explanations are written as a note. So please read these explanation. In many slides you can find these explanation, so they will help us to understand this thing. What are these guidelines? Strive for the consistency. We have discussed about the consistency. For example, if we have a control C for the copy and the control V for the paste, so across the application we should use the same shortcut. The application should support the same shortcut to achieve the consistency. The second guideline is that enable the frequent user to use the shortcut. So the people who are the expert people, they prefer that they can work faster, so we should provide the shortcut keyboard shortcut so they can work faster. The third rule for the Shneiderman is that offer the informative feedback. So the system should provide a kind of feedback to the user so the user can understand the state of the system. Either you are copying the file, or you are downloading the file, or you are doing some other action, the system should provide the feedback. The fourth rule is the design dialog to yield the closure. So they should design the dialog such that they are providing the closure. Closure means something which is a closed loop is there. There is no space to do the mistake. So this is the objective of the design the dialog to yield the closure. Offering the error prevention and the simple error handling. In this principle we are saying that first we try to that the user is not doing the error, but it is not possible human will do the error. So if the error is there, you should provide some mechanism the user can handle the error either by the forward error recovery or by the backward error recovery. Permit the easy reversal of the action. If the user has done some mistake, it should be able to go back to the previous state and then correct the mistakes and then move forward. For example, I give you the example like in the word processor, if you delete some table or some picture, you can undo the action by the control C. Support the internal locus of the control. Again, the explanation is there. What is meant by the internal locus of the control? When we apply this notion to the software design, we want to make sure that the user feel in control of the software and confident how to accomplish their task. A user should never wondering how did I get to this screen, or what to do, what do I need to press to my task. Navigation in a task activation should always be clear in the while mark. The meaning of this principle is that when the user is doing the task, the user should have the control over the task. He should not be wondering that from this page how I go back to the home screen or how I go back to the home page. The user should feel that in the system that he has the control. He can easily navigate, he can easily use the system, and he should not be wondering that what to do. The next principle for the Shneider-Goldman rule is that reduce the short-term memory load, because the human being cannot remember the many things in the short-term memory. Our short-term memory is the small. For example, if I tell you the 4 or 5 telephone numbers or the mobile number, you cannot remember all of them because our short-term memory is the low. Maybe one number you can remember this thing. So we should not design the system in such a way that user has to memorize so many things. We should provide the mechanism that the user is able to recognize the thing by the icons or by the graphical thing. He should not memorize the thing, but looking at something he had the clue and then he can find the information. For example, if we have to search the file and the file is somewhere in the folder, and one option is that we have to write the correct name of the file, the full name of the file, but it's not possible. Maybe we remember only the partial name of the file, we know only the extension of the file. So we can write a partial name and the system should be able to locate or search the file for us. So we are reducing the load on the short-term memory. Now let's discuss about the SCI design pattern and approach. What are the SCI design pattern and approach to reuse the knowledge about the successful design solution? As I told you earlier that we are using some guidelines, we are using some standards, so we are designing in such a way that we can reuse the design again. So whatever we are creating, they are following some kind of pattern, and these patterns can be applied again to the new design situation or to the solution. A pattern is an invariant solution to a recurrent problem within the specific context. If the problem is coming again, because in many situations a part of the design can be reused again in the new design or in the new product. So we are going to say this is called the recurrent problem. So whatever we have designed earlier, we can again reuse the same thing in the new product. Let's finally, in summary, what we have discussed. We have, as I told you, that most important thing we have discussed is the principle of the usability. Repeatable design for usability relies on the maximizing the benefit of one good design by abstracting out the general properties which can be direct purpose of the design. So in the repeatable design, which we are going to do again and again, we have to use the guidelines, we have to use the principle which are achieving the usability. We have discussed what are the principles for the usability is there, and within the each of these principles we have discussed the multiple principles are there. We have to use this principle so that we are designing the right thing, and these principles can be applied again. The success of the designing for the usability requires both the creative insights, the new paradigm, and purposeful principle practice. So if you are designing a thing, you have to be creative. Sometimes you are coming with very the new thing, and sometimes you have to use the already given principle or the guideline to design the thing. So both the things should be used in the successful design. Using the design rule, standard and a guideline to direct the design activity. So if you have the standards are there, the guidelines are there, they are going to help us in designing the product. So this was the summary for this lecture. References are there, and disclaimer and the fair use statements are there. So this is a lecture 7. So you can listen this lecture, and you can also read the lectures.